In the first bit, we'll talk a little bit about just what exactly is an encryption lattice. Because we know that we have the basic template of the Cathara grid and the structure is built on that. But this is a structure that's part of the light body, actually. And it's connected to all those things, of course, but it's a specific aspect of it. It doesn't go into light body here, but it tells you a little bit about what it is. Let's see, where does that come in? Right there. So I will read to you in context how the Beloveds worked it with me. And the way this is written is interesting. It's like it's me writing it, but they come in sometimes and weave it through, and they've done this for a step down. Because when you just read something and it's direct transmission from the Beloveds with it's a different frequency, like the Voyagers books. That's like, transmitting matrix, whatever, speaker number, whatever name is, step down, whatever. And it's a different frequency, and it's too high for, making it so more people can understand what's being talked about. So sometimes they will just move the information through me as I am writing something, and then it just kind of goes crazy on the keyboard. And oh, okay. But so when you hear it, it's not written like the Voyagers books in the sense of, this is so and so from whatever star system, that kind of thing. It's written as if I'm speaking to you or to the person who's reading it. And, well, most of it is. I think there's a little bit of where you can feel the shift, but pretty much starts with that. So we'll start with this one section. Sorry. So far, it's on page 13 as far as printout, but I'm not sure if by the time it gets on the website, if that will still be the page number, because they sometimes shift, right? So for now, it's on page 13. But it's under the heading of Free Will Choice. It's all true, the encryption lattice, and the paths of rise and fall. So this gives us a general parameter of what all those things mean. They've already gone into talking about, before this, the Fibonacci spiral and those kind of things, where they did a comparative, just a simple one. Even if you've never heard of these paradigms before coming in on the website, you would still be able to get the gist of what's being said in the comparisons. So they've moved from that and that information into this next level of information. Okay. And through this, we'll find out a bit about encryption lattices. They said, okay, though the cosmos allows and finds value in all things, and it's all good / God, right, as the New Age sayings tell us, and with which the MCEO perspectively agrees. We actually agree with those statements. It is also all good God to learn to discern between the various paths of spiritual awakening, if one hopes to have any conscious influence at all over the direction of personal evolution. Where precisely does each spiritual path lead is a question worth asking. In the MCEO CDT plate dispensations, the answer to this question is answered in precise detail, unlike the lofty but vacuous explanations offered in other paradigms. And yes, eventually all paths return to source, but another good question to ask is, what will the experiential road between here and source look like? For therein lies the core reason for discernment in choosing a life path, be it spiritual or otherwise. Now, the cosmos runs by certain immutable natural laws that will exist and experientially apply whether or not one chooses to believe in them. One such cosmic law is that of cause and effect. Action and consequence to action, or the law of reciprocity. What goes around comes around, to put it simply. We will have consequence to action for each action we choose to take. And if we happen to choose an evolutionary path built upon fundamentals of energy inherent to the death sciences, which they had talked about before previously, and that has to do with the Bloom of Doom paradigm and the Metatronic sciences. Okay, so inherent to the death sciences, path of finite life and space dust return, we will live the experiential energetic consequence of that choice. If we choose not to choose a path of conscious evolutionary direction and simply say, as the song says, sha-la-la-la-la, live for today, that one, I can't sing right now, right? Our not choosing still remains a choice. And in the choice of no choice, we will be at the mercy of the energetic consequence that emerges through the field of mass action surrounding us in the external environment. So if we choose not to choose and just don't bother ourselves with it, it'll be chosen for us by what's called quantum dominant quantum, where the quantum of the collective is stronger than your own little one. And if you're not working directly, and focusing your energy in specific ways, you'll just get dragged along with whatever the species field is in the planetary field. All right, let's see. About there. Okay. In our current societies, we have a wealth of happy, affirmative New Age jargon with which we could blissfully dance ourselves into unknowing oblivion for several lifetimes to come. But behind the jargon, there are real energetic realities taking place, and it is through the response to those underlying energetic realities that we will meet with the reality of experiential energetic consequence. Now, they jump a paragraph here to stay on point here. Here's where we get into encryption lattices. The reality and core frequency vibration of a being, thought, idea, emotion, matter form, or any manifest thing represents what is called the core radiation encryption. This core truth in frequency vibration is in actuality the frequency vibration of the core energy radiation signature held within the morphogenetic field template lattice upon which the organization of the multidimensional form of any manifest thing is structured. The morphogenetic field template is referred to as a lattice because it is a constantly fluctuating, flowing field of intricate, interwoven geometrical forms and patterns made of minute points of radiation that exists within, behind, and surrounding the matter form that manifests upon it. In terms of this core radiation encryption lattice, even invisible phenomena such as thoughts, ideas, and emotions are literal manifest things possessing tangible form, structure, matter expression, and a core encryption lattice somewhere within the multidimensional spectrum. The cumulative sum of the frequency vibration of the core encryption lattice at any given moment in time is called the base pulse rhythm, or BPR. It is the BPR of the morphogenetic field encryption lattice that draws a manifest form into the cumulative energetic consequence corresponding to the BPR of its energetic lattice. That means if you just have thoughts, and I'm going to do all my happy thoughts, and I'm not going to focus on anything but my happy thoughts, that will be part of your BPR, of your encryption lattice. But what are your atoms doing? Do you know? Because if what is happening on the atomic level, say through psychotronics that are being beamed through the planet directly aimed at our bodies, it won't matter how many happy thoughts you think. It's still going to go into an alignment that you are not choosing. And this is why they're bringing the encryption lattices to our attention. Okay, now, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses within ascension systems as the law of reciprocal attraction, through which the encryption lattice of a manifest form is drawn into reciprocal or mutual relationship with its corresponding energetic consequence. It is the law of co-resonant harmonic alignment, which simply means that the specific core frequency vibration, or BPR, of a matter form's encryption lattice will draw that matter form into relationship with other matter forms that have a correspondingly similar encryption lattice and BPR. Now, from here, they go into a little bit about the paths of rise and fall, because that law of co-resonant harmonic alignment applies to ascension systems, but it works a bit differently in fall systems. And right now, we're in a blended system. All right, so now, in the path, in the re-evolutionary path of accretion or ascension, it's the re-evolutionary path where we're re-evolving and accreting ourselves back into our wholeness, right? In the re-evolutionary path of accretion or ascension, like encryption attracts like encryption, and opposite polarities attract. So we still have the opposite electrical polarities attracting, but underneath that, like encryption attracts like encryption. Okay, through co-resonant harmonic alignment of common BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of the greater unified field around us. Because of this dynamic, a manifest individual can use free will to create its own reality because its personal encryption lattice is connected to the larger encryption lattice of the greater unified field through an organic common neutral field through which energy openly circulates in mutually appropriate proportions, allowing for perpetual quantum exchange and self-regeneration between the personal encryption lattice and unified field encryption lattice. Through this organic common neutral field, the individual can consciously direct the BPR and geometrical mathematical contours of the personal morphogenetic field encryption lattice within a perpetual co-resonant relationship of mutual energy exchange, which means the unified field isn't dragging you around because there's this neutral space where your encryption field meets, and this has to do with the physics of the energy, and where you meet with the unified field, you still have free will choice where whatever the dominant pattern in the immediate unified field is, like say your planetary field, will not drag you around. You can still change your encryption lattice in relation to that. And this operates differently in fall systems. All right. Through the common neutral field, the field of the individual remains connected to, but not controlled by, the greater quantum unified field encryption lattice. Thus, the individual shares a perpetual reciprocally cooperative relationship with the living unified field. In ascension systems, for every action, there is a reciprocally appropriate reaction. In ascension systems, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses as the eternal law of reciprocity or mutuality, which leads to progressive identity accretion into wholeness and eventual self-transfiguration into eternal life consciousness through the dynamics of stardust return in Christ star ascension. All right, so stardust is literally when we turn ourselves into particulates in the ascension process. They are living particulates, which is a very different process than what happens in fall systems. Now, in the de-evolutionary path of annihilation, or fall. All right, so we had re-evolutionary path of accretion coming together in wholeness. Now the opposite of that is the de-evolutionary path of annihilation or fall. And this is interesting. They're trying to put this in a simple way where it takes it out of the good versus evil framework, all of that, so people coming in can have a basic understanding of why we differentiate between certain teachings, why we need to look at those things. So in the de-evolutionary path of annihilation or fall, opposite encryptions and opposite polarities attract. Now, in the natural systems, opposite polarities attract, but like encryptions attract. That is changed in the de-evolutionary fall paths, where you have opposite encryptions and opposite polarities attract. Okay? And they attract through adhesive disharmonic alignment of opposite BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of a greater quantum quarantine field. So this is different. If you literally, when you print these out, because you can print these out once they're posted, you can just look at each sentence like one by one. Okay, it said that up on the, for the fall, and this one, one on the rise, one on the fall, and you can see the differences more easily. Because a lot of times what they will do when they're bringing these type of things through, they will give me the sentence structure for the top one, then they'll have me copy it, and then they'll just change the words to show its opposite, so it still has the flow where you can understand which parts correspond with which parts between the rise and the fall, for example. Okay, so let's see. Manifest form, that's greater quantum field. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'll read that line over again just because the next one refers right back to it. Okay, so in the de-evolutionary path, opposite encryptions and polarities attract through adhesive disharmonic alignment as opposed to the co-resonant harmonic alignment of BPRs. It's actually adhesive. They stick together. Disharmonic alignment, they're almost like syncopated alignment, part reverse, part forward, and where it creates an unnatural bond. So adhesive disharmonic alignment of opposite BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of a greater quantum quarantine field, such as a black hole system, where the relationship between an individual in the living systems is with literally the entire cosmos, the energy structure of the entire cosmos, where in false systems they are quarantine systems, black hole systems that are cut off from the natural flow and circulation of the primal life force currents and things. So there, it is a smaller quantum that the individual is interacting with as its unified field. Right? Because of this dynamic, a manifest individual has no free will. Its personal encryption lattice is adhered to the larger encryption lattice of the greater quantum quarantine field by an inorganic static bond through which energy cannot openly circulate. So this is instead of that neutral field that allows for that free will, or for where you can move your own encryption around, this is you're actually stuck on a larger one that will control your encryption for you. Okay, so adhere to the larger encryption lattice of greater quantum quarantine field by an inorganic static bond through which energy cannot openly circulate, but rather remains in an inorganic state of perpetual counterforce tension between the individual encryption lattice and the quarantine field encryption lattice. So there's actually an unnatural counterforce tension, a pull. One's trying to pull one way, one's trying to pull the other, but the larger quantum one will always win, and that will be the larger field that the individual is stuck within. Through this inorganic field of counterforce tension, the field of greater quantum to which the individual is bonded will control and direct by quantum dominance the contours and BPR of the personal encryption lattice. Thus, the individual cannot consciously direct the BPR and geometrical mathematical contours of the personal morphogenetic field encryption lattice, as it can only respond in subjugate service to the encryption lattice of the greater quantum field to which it is adhered. In false systems, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that's what science here tells us is the way it is everywhere. It isn't. In natural systems, it's a reciprocally appropriate reaction as opposed to equal and opposite. In simple terms, equal and opposite reaction gives you if somebody hits you, you hit them back. Right? I mean, simple as that. And that's usually not the right thing to do. Right? So, but it goes into the laws of physics and how they apply. Okay? Right? In false systems, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses as the finite law of polarity competition, where in the eternal life systems, cause and effect expresses as the eternal law of reciprocity or mutuality. In the finite systems, in the false systems, it's the finite law of polarity competition, which leads to progressive identity fragmentation and eventual self-annihilation through the dynamics of space dust return in what's called Death Star implosion. We'll learn more about what the Death Star is. Okay. Contemporary Earth is presently a blended system with over 66% of its encryption lattice in false system BPR alignment. So, this becomes a problem when we hit 2012, as we will find out. Now, in regard to the sacred sciences of ascension systems and the death sciences of false systems, the MCEO Freedom Teachings and the Guardians are not interested in proving which is right or which is wrong. From the MCEO perspective, there is no polarity drama between the two viewpoints and the reality systems they form. There's an interesting perspective on how to look at the false system and rise system, concept. Sorry. Both viewpoints are known as the truth. This is where it's all true. Are known as the truth within the unified big picture of eternity. These sacred ascension sciences contained within the ancient MCEO CDD plate teachings represent a record of the truth corresponding to the re-evolutionary path of genuine eternal life ascension. This truth is imbued within the encryption lattice and demonstrated throughout the structures, mathematics, processes, and dynamics inherent to every ascension system and for which the MCEO paradigm stands. So literally within all the structures that we've taught about, the light body structures, the spirit body structures, and all the processes that we've taught that go with that anatomy, that literally the encryption that information holds, because remember every thought, every idea has an encryption pattern underneath it. All of the information that we have been taught from the CDD plates holds the encryption of Ascension, the Ascension encryption in its core lattice. Now, the Metatronic death sciences contained within the ancient Bloom of Doom teachings represent a record of the truth, corresponding to the de-evolutionary path of genuine finite life expansion. So they are both true in correspondence to what they create. All right? So that is true too. The death science teachings are true in corresponding to the de-evolutionary path of genuine finite life finite life expansion. So finite life expansion is actually what it creates in the fall systems. It actually creates a perpetually expanding universe that eventually self-destructs. All right, and that's what science is telling us is happening, in our universe out there. So these are what they're saying is both perspectives are true. They're completely true in relation to what they create. Okay? All right. Now, just like the truth of the Ascension sciences are imbued within the mathematics, the sacred geometries and things that we teach, well, the same applies to the geometries and things that are used in the death sciences, as they call them. So this truth of fall is imbued within and demonstrated throughout the structures, mathematics, processes, and dynamics inherent to every fall system and for which the Bloom of Doom paradigm stands. So literally, both are true in relation to what they create. So it's like, get over the good versus evil drama and all that polarity. In the larger picture, they both exist as truth in relation to what is created through them and what they stand for. And the core truth would be the encryption that is literally underneath them. Right? Thus, the contradictory perspectives are both absolutely true in relation to the realities of energetic consequence each respectively creates and embodies, as they coexist as part of the isness within the unified big picture reality of cosmic eternity. So they are both part of the cosmic truth, part of the isness of the reality. Both perspectives are true in relation to their own energetic objective and false in relation to the objectives of the other. So what's our truths of ascension would be considered false by those who are choosing fall path, and vice versa, right? The greatest difference between these realities, aside from the quality of evolutionary experience within them, is that, like the eternal life cosmos, ascension systems are eternal and represent a path of source return through the innocent knowing of stardust wholeness, whereas unlike the eternal cosmos, false systems are finite and represent a path of source return through innocent unknowing of space dust fragmentation. So it is literally as simple as that. It's not worth fighting over whose gods are better and all that kind of silly nonsense that most of the planet is stuck in right now. It comes down to sacred physics and what is the reality that is taking place. And as long as we have the division between spirit and science paradigms, where you have religions and you have sciences and they always disagree with each other, they're both missing the point. Because ascension doesn't happen without the unification of those two things. Okay, let's see. I like this saying. That which is eternal remains eternal, and that which is finite eventually self-destructs, returning to its source as undifferentiated units of consciousness. The God-source conscious unified field allows for the expression of both perspectives through application of the gift of free will, and each expression will have its corresponding experiential consequence. All beings and things were originally manifest from the common eternal God-source conscious unified field through the eternal dynamics of sacred science, and all were equally imbued with the birthright of ascension and the gift of free will choice. The eternal cosmos, this is interesting, the eternal cosmos does not require fall systems in order to achieve and maintain its balance, which means that even if nobody in the entire cosmos chose to do anything that broke any of the organic natural physics laws, and there were no fall systems, the natural living systems are not dependent on the presence of false systems to balance the polarities, which is an argument I've heard in various spots. Oh, well, you know, the good guys couldn't do what they're doing if it weren't for the bad guys. That's not true. It's just not true. It was the only reason the concept of false systems were allowed was so free will choice would have free reign. And the only thing that tempers free will choice, it's not God, you know, pointing a finger and zapping you with a lightning bolt. You zap yourself with a lightning bolt because you will get consequence energetically to what energetic things you put out. And it's as simple as that, where it just takes the whole understanding of how the universe works out of the polarity drama where everybody's nitpicking at each other and nobody agrees and that kind of thing, where you can actually get an understanding of how it works so you can make better choices. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Source simply allowed for the potentiality of false systems as a means for expression of free will choice. The eternal cosmic laws of multidimensional physics were created by Source to serve as an organic moderator to free will choice through the dynamics of cause, effect, and consequence. And it is through the dynamics inherent to these cosmic laws that eternal living balance is perpetually maintained with or without the presence of false systems. So even if they all went away and everything got healed, it would still work. We'd still have materialization, manifestation, and we'd probably have a lot of other things to do with our time instead of trying to rescue falling systems. The question over which path is right or which path is wrong simply comes down to choosing the energetic truth that most suits you and your encryption lattice. The energetic consequence and experiential outpicture of that chosen truth will be yours, whatever you decide. The reality of who and what you are is the energetic truth in frequency vibration held with your encryption lattice. In Ascension Systems, free will is the tool we use to create our own personal evolutionary destiny within the preordained framework of the cosmic unified field. So life is not predestined. There is a preordained framework that exists, and within that framework we have complete free will. And the only thing that tempers that is how energy works, as far as physics works, and that is how we get our consequence. All right. With a little help sometimes from cosmic fallen ones who like to really tip systems on their side and their ear like we have right now. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have free will is the tool we use to create our own reality within the preordained framework of the cosmic unified field through conscious direction of the contours and BPR, cumulative core frequency vibration, of our personal encryption lattice. Back to the encryption lattice again. Must be important, whatever it is. Because it seems like we've worked with all sorts of levels of our anatomy and progressively healed them and got them up so we could go to the next level of healing. And now we're getting into the core program set that literally floats around in our fields, changes from second to second, nanosecond to nanosecond probably, with every thought we think, and also with every image we hold, with every photograph we see, with every song we hear, with everything that gets beamed through the planetary field. So there is this level, and it has to do with our biomagnetic fields. Just like on a planetary level, it has to do with the geomagnetic field. And that is what is, right now, what is happening with the planetary geomagnetic field, that we get a micro reflection of in our bodies, is it is 66% Metatronic at this point, and it's going to go into what they call the 55 spin activation in 2012, which is a definite problem for the life field on the planet. Okay, anyway, in fall systems, the personal power of free will choice and control of the personal encryption lattice is progressively subjugated to the greater quantum power of the encryption lattice of the environmental collective. And that is what is happening to most people and life forms on this planet. All right, there are things happening that are so huge most people don't even know such things exist in the planetary fields themselves. And these things will directly, progressively take control of the individual encryption lattices of persons, which means progressively people will lose free will choice in relation to their evolutionary destiny. And what's sad about it is they won't even know it's happening. Well, not that they do now either, the general populations. So the reason the beloveds are bringing this information, even at this level out, is to give at least one level a step down. There'll be simpler ones after this too. But it's like last call, people, because 2012 is going to happen, and some fascinating things and horrifying things are going to happen during that period. Could be a lot worse, though. We're not going to roll, so this is really good. Excuse me. Now we'll go on to the next bit. I skip a little bit there, and then take it into another section. And this one's under the heading, the subheading, that's called The Human Dilemma. And the whole heading is called Human Dilemma Channels Earth Extinctions 2012 and the Planetary Encryption Lattice. All right, so they're not going to read the whole thing on this. We won't talk about the channels tonight or any of that. That'll be there, for when it's posted. Let's see. We'll bring it back to encryption lattices. They mentioned a little bit in here, encryption lattices. It says, when the events of history and contemporary times are viewed with an understanding of the function of encryption lattices and their direct role in creating evolutionary path alignments. Through the reality of BPR coresonance, it can be understood that specific mass beliefs create corresponding specific contours and geometrical mathematical patterns within the collective species encryption lattice, and resultantly within the planetary encryption lattice, all of which directly affects the core BPR alignment of the planet and thus the planet's evolutionary path alignment. So look at what we're being beamed with at this point. We've got Nostradamus doing it. We've got the Bible doing it. Everybody's trying to. The Mayans are doing it. As far as, it's going to be, it's the end times, scenarios. We're getting this beamed on TV shows all over the place at this point. It's big hype, and they're going to continue. That's going to be hyped even more because there are certain forces that are indeed trying to make that occur. And by taking a collective of people and convincing them a certain thing is true, even if it isn't, you still create an energy signature that holds that reality in truth, and that truth will line up with one or the other systems of truth. It will either take you toward fall or take you toward rise. And in believing in that particular scenario, and there's a lot of people who do, both in science and spirituality paradigms, they are literally aligning their personal encryption matrix with the fall system. We'll find out more about what 2012 is about as we go on, and it's kind of mind-blowing, actually. As they were giving it to me, oh my God. Right. And it did explain one thing. I always wondered what happens after the 13th breath in a certain bloom of doom paradigm. Anyway, we get a clue as what happens after it activates to 55. And oh boy, little magical vehicle that is. Take you straight to hell. Anyway, now they're going to move into, as we talked about encryptions and rise and fall paths and alignments with them through our core encryption in this encryption lattice, lining up with either fall path or rise path. And then we talked a little bit just about the mass beliefs and your own personal beliefs and how they affect what the dominant quantum will be in the planetary encryption field or in encryption lattice. Now, they're going to move into what are called the 5 mass extinction events. They're going to jump here a bit. There's not too much in between, actually. I think a page, right? That, it gets into the channels a bit there. We don't really need to cover that tonight. You can, read it in context later, but they want to get into the mass extinction bits because this will bring us into understanding some of the things that are going on the planet now that we are moving toward 2012, so we can get to the most important stuff, which is an answer to some very interesting questions that once you know certain things, you definitely, how did they word it? They worded it as it begs a host of questions, that they can finally start answering. So we will get through this part. So the next part they're going to talk about are the 5 mass extinction events that have historically occurred on Earth. One approximately 446 million years ago, one about 364 million years ago, one about 252 million years ago, which was the largest, one about 200 million years ago called the TJ event, and one about 65 million years ago called the KT event, which is one where all the dinosaurs went elsewhere. These were not happenstance occurrences that resulted from organic environmental conditions. These events were deliberately and specifically purposed extermination events, orchestrated by competing Illuminati Elder Race ET groups as part of their long-running battle over Earth Templar Stargate Dominion. All of these extermination events took place prior to angelic human seeding 1, 25 million years ago, and on this planet. And when on parallel Earth, it was 250 million years ago, but we've only been on this side for 25 million. And all were created, all those events were created in order to change the mathematical geometrical patterns of Earth's core encryption lattice morphogenetic field. So you wipe species out that hold certain vibrations, and it changes the planetary encryption lattice, right? And so literally, these were done in order to get control or try to control the coding of the encryption lattice by removing the encryption lattices of undesired life forms from the encryption lattice of Earth's collective life field. All right, so those events were created on purpose specifically to do that. It was all about the Templar getting control of Earth's stargates, and we'll find out later why they're so important to them. All right, we know a little bit from what we learned so far, but it gets even better. The technologies by which such enormous effects of these, like these extinctions, can be generated are the product of Bloom of Doom Metatronic death science applications. During the Atlantean periods of 13,400 BC, about 15,000 years ago, and 10,948 BC, about 13,000 years ago, these pre-ancient Metatronic death science technologies were once again slowly but progressively reawakened to serve an instrumental role in the Illuminati Master Plan agenda. And this is why they're going here, because the Master Plan agenda has to do with 2012, right? And then they have a little bit on in this particular writing, because it's a summary. There's little, like, in parentheses things of, you can find more information on this here, 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 and here, and here, like what books, what workshops, that kind of stuff. So I'll skip that part. Then, so in contemporary times, all humans, both angelic and Illuminati alike, share a common human dilemma, as together we are facing a rapidly approaching appointment with destiny, during which the evolutionary potentials of humankind will be finally determined. Presently, both the great white hope of enlightenment that the New Age movement was intended to become, and the traditional brotherhoods of religion and science that this great white otherhood was planning to assimilate, are together wandering blindly toward a collective destiny where they will have little conscious choice as to the nature of global events in which they will become progressively entrenched. Currently, both the traditional and the New Age collectives are unknowingly becoming, to quote an earlier passage. Now, this passage that is, I pulled it from earlier, where they talked about things that happened in history, and they talked about the fall of Atlantis and what happened in Atlantis. And this was said in relation to that historical period. And they're pulling it up because it's happening exactly now. They said, okay, to quote an earlier passage, a mass of metatronically coded biological electromagnetic human quanta, which is how the Illuminati look at humans, who perform specific spiritual energy rituals at various key sacred site locations of Earth's Templar, during, and it said, and they were talking about a different period, but during all important periods of, they didn't call them ascension cycles yet because they hadn't revealed those words yet, but they're saying here, during this all-important period of Earth's stellar activation cycle, right? The passage continues with, this process of invasion from within worked relatively well in fulfilling the Illuminati small-scale agendas of the ancient Atlantean period, culminating in fall by design of Atlantean culture and resultant cataclysmic destruction of the territories of Atlantis. These small Illuminati victories of Atlantis represented baby steps in the fulfillment of a much larger Illuminati master plan, to which these small steps were intended to lead. And then here it went, sound familiar? Because that's what we had talked about before in the other context of the history, right? It said, yes, again, once again, Atlantis is rising to repeat its ugly history all over again. But this time, it's the final conflict drama, and the final big game is on. Excuse me. Okay. The baby steps of the ancient Atlantean Illuminati victories have now become the giant steps of an invisible Illuminati elder, Leviathan Goliath. The Illuminati elders, and when I say Illuminati elders, we're talking about the off-planet ones, the ET and other dimensional ones, not just their children, which are the Illuminati humans. They're part human, the ones on planet, right? At least on the outside, but some of them. There's some that are very still human. They just, we all have a bit of the Illuminati codes with us for now. But there are some serious reptilians hanging out in human form. Yeah, and some others too. Anyway, these were the baby steps at Atlantis that were meant to lead up to now. And now these are giant steps of the invisible, because people don't realize it's happening, Illuminati Elder Leviathan Goliath. The Illuminati elders are dedicated, as they have been since long before Atlantis, to their prime directive of seizing dominion of Earth's stargates through control of the planetary encryption lattice and geomagnetic field. The only reason that the angelic human lineage was permitted to survive, and the only reason the Illuminati human races were so painstakingly cultivated, was to enable the off-planet Illuminati elder races direct bioelectronic access to Earth's stargates during a stellar activation cycle. In the view of the Illuminati elder races, once bioelectronic stargate access was accomplished and Earth's stargates were opened on a dominant Metatronic code through the presence of both the angelic humans, who had certain key codes that they couldn't interbreed in, and the Illuminati human genetic lines, then both Earth human gene lines, both Illuminati and Earth human, will have served their purposes and become redundant. They were planning to get rid of us all as soon as we got the gates open. And that goes for the Illuminati ones too. The point of species redundancy within the prime objective of the Illuminati master plan is the point at which Earth's stargates would open under Metatronic dominance during a stellar activation cycle. This point has been scheduled by the Illuminati elders for about 13,000 years to occur between the end of 2012 AD and the beginning of 2013 AD. And at this point, the Illuminati elders have long intended to orchestrate the sixth and last Earth extinction through rapid shift of Earth's geomagnetic poles. Excuse me, I have a drink here. Okay. Next section is called The Big Game, the show, Pertinent Questions, and the Silver Seed Awakening. It's very quiet, I noticed. Okay. And here it was kind of funny. I tend to not word things this way, so this is one of those where the beloveds kind of came through like they do sometimes in the Voyagers, but it still seems like, well, it's kind of us. And they said, "Dear people, the BPR," right? Like, people out there on planet Earth, right? The BPR showdown is on. We are going to, are we going to pull up a chair, grab a bowl of popcorn, and just sit, just watch the show unfold? Or are we going to make an effort to achieve some conscious control over our personal evolutionary destinies? The choice is fully up to each individual, and the MCEO humbly respects whatever your free will choice might be. Sadly, most human populations do not even realize that the show has been released into the theater, and so we'll continue to move forward within the Atlantean waking dream of long ago, from which we all emerged. For those of us who still care about our personal evolutionary destinies, positive, love-based, joy-filled things can be done in preparation for and following 2012, which will provide the opportunity for us to shift ourselves into a more desirable evolutionary alignment than that of the path of fall, to which the primary quantum of Earth is now engaged through 66% quantum alignment of its planetary encryption lattice and geomagnetic field to the Metatronic code. Earth's current predicament begs a host of questions that the MCEO Guardians can now begin to address. Here's where it gets really interesting. Oh boy. Start with simple questions. Simple question 1. Will Earth's current SAC, stellar activation cycle, ascension cycle, Stargate opening period continue? Like with all that we've heard, is the game still on as far as ascension, or is it just hopeless? The answer to that is yes, it will continue, but with extensive modifications, which will be progressively addressed in coming MCO teachings. In 2003, Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargate system fell to Meditronic Illuminati control. The MCEO Guardian's efforts to rehabilitate the Amenti gates failed by 2003 end, and thus the encryption lattice of Earth's Amenti Stargates no longer aligns with the organic ascension passages of the living cosmos, but rather aligns with the Meditronic wormhole structures that interface with the fallen parallel Earth, parallel Milky Way black hole system. With the fall of the Amenti gates in 2003, the MCEO Guardians have progressively activated a very ancient network of transdimensional Earth interface stargates, which include the Ark of the Covenant Hub Gate Network, the Polarian Gate System, and the Navajo Spanner Core Gate System, which together in 2012 will allow for the opening of the Aurora Silver Seed Gates, through which Earth's Templar can retain direct connection to the living cosmos, living cosmic Templar ascension passages, despite the Illuminati's scheduled 2012 opening of the fall-aligned parallel Alpha Omega gates into Earth's captured halls of Amenti stargates. So they're planning to open the Alpha Omega wormhole gates into Amenti gates. Okay, through the opening of the Aurora Silver Seed gates, Earth's Ark of the Covenant, Polarian, and Navajo Spanner Core Gates networks will fully open in 2012, keeping the potentials of genuine eternal life ascension viable on Earth during the current SAC. So that was a simple answer to that question. Next one's not too bad, or is it? That's 1.5 page answer on the next one. Okay, next question was, this is interesting too. There'll be more in summary 1 on this too. Why did Illuminati elders schedule the fulfillment of their master plan prime objective for 2012 AD? Where'd that come out of? They pull it out of a hat, right? In 22,326 BC, the Illuminati Earth Templar quest ended in a stalemate between Guardian and Illuminati races. Since that time, both groups knew that the Templar conflict drama showdown would occur during the next SAC Stargate cycle, as the Illuminati force required Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargates to be open in order to fulfill their agenda of using inorganic Meditronic wormhole structures to blend the encryption lattice of Earth's Templar with that of the fallen parallel Milky Way galaxy. Earth's next SAC was not due until 4230 AD, but the Meditronic Fallgate artificial wormhole structures of parallel Milky Way and parallel Earth were due to open in our time equivalent of 2012 AD. So the reason they focused here is because that's when their gates were opening in parallel. But ours were out of sync. They're running on about, at this point, I think, about a 25,771 year cycle, I believe, at this point, where ours naturally go on the 26,556 year cycle. This gets into some interesting historical things that have been done on this planet in order to synchronize the gates. In the 13,400 BC and 10,948 BC Earth Atlantean periods, excuse me, the Illuminati force succeeded in orchestrating 2 inorganic accelerations of Earth's wobble, the precession of the equinox cycle, and encryption lattice. These accelerations caused an inorganic time acceleration within portions of Earth's Templar and Halls of Amenti Stargate system, which would cause Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargates to open prematurely in the 2012 to 2013 AD period for encryption lattice blending with the open fall gates cycle of the parallel Milky Way black hole system. The Earth's Amenti gates would open in this time period only if there were a sufficient number of Illuminati human hybrid races on Earth to run the bioelectronic Amenti gate codes into Earth's Templar during this parallel gate alignment. The Illuminati parallel gate alignment is called the Alpha Omega alignment, which occurs between October of 2012 and February of 2013, with peak alignment on December 21st, 2012, which is the winter solstice. If the Illuminati Elder agenda succeeded, Earth's Amenti Stargates would be prematurely forced open to engage direct encryption lattice and Merkaba field blend with the parallel Earth through opening of the Metatronic wormholes within the black hole center of our Milky Way galaxy, which is what they were trying the beginning of before in 2003 with the dimensional blend experiment that we talked about in the Voyagers books, and we actually headed off at the pass when we went to Andorra and did the grid work there. They were trying to, now when 2012 comes, they're going to have to do that step that they were trying to do then that they didn't succeed in doing. They're going to have to incorporate that then. They were expecting to get to what's called the 55 Metatronic 55 point, which we'll talk about later. They were hoping to do that in 2003, and they would have controlled everything, you know, from that point forward. They didn't make it then, but they're going to make it in 2012 as far as that goes. Now, in preparation for the parallel alignment, we'll refer to it as parallel alignment right now. It gets a bit more detailed as far as alignment with what? Okay, parallel gates, but more. In preparation for the parallel alignment and the Illuminati scheduled Earth-Human 2012 appointment with Illuminati Destiny, the Illuminati elder races progressively orchestrated the common man mass DNA mutation that we've talked about in the Voyagers books, through which the Illuminati human line, carrying the Emente Stargate codes interbred from the angelic humans, would be ready for the 2012-2013 AD Alpha Omega alignment. So they could be ready to run the codes in on reverse, to open Emente on reverse, so it could receive the Metatronic broadcast that would be coming in from the wormholes. Throughout the history of this Atlantean drama, since the 22,326 BC stalemate, the GA-MCEO Crystal River Guardians progressively attempted to postpone the final conflict drama until the organic next Emente Gates SAC of 4,230 AD, but intended to intervene directly if the Illuminati force attempted to orchestrate early opening of Earth's halls of Emente Stargates in 2012 to engage the Alpha-Omega Fall alignment. In 1984 AD, the Guardians initiated the Bridge Zone Project Templar Restoration Mission, so it's talked about in the Voyagers books, and began early opening of the Emente Stargates for the 2012 to 2017 period because they discovered that Earth met with a cataclysmic end in the future probability of 2976 AD, and thus Earth would not make it to the next organic stellar activation cycle of 4230 AD. If the Bridge Zone Project had been successful, Earth's encryption lattice would have been restored to organic ascension path alignment, and the Illuminati 2012 master plan of the Alpha-Omega alignment would be prevented. With the fall of Earth's halls of Emente Stargates to Metatronic control in 2003, the Bridge Zone Project evolutionary option failed by 2006. Thus, Earth is currently in the middle of the covert final conflict drama and rapidly approaching the 2012 Illuminati Alpha-Omega alignment and its intended last extinction agenda. The date of 2012 AD was chosen by the Illuminati Elder Races as the point of fulfillment for their master plan prime objective, because this is the date period in which the Fallgate system of parallel Earth and parallel Milky Way open into the Metatronic wormholes in our galactic core. It is thus the point in time at which the Alpha-Omega alignment between Earth's accelerated Templar and the fallen parallel galactic Templar system can engage inorganic Metatronic blending through the Metatronic wormhole system in the black hole core of our Milky Way galaxy. Simply put, the Metatronic encryption lattice of Earth's halls of Emente Stargates aligns with that of the fallen parallel Earth and Milky Way through our galactic core to engage the Alpha-Omega fall path alignment. That last sentence was in simple terms. So this is what 2012 is about. There is this alignment. It's not. It's funny. There's all sorts of people out there trying to predict what the alignment is with galactic core because the Mayan calendar gave some hints to it and that kind of thing. But there's underlying things that they're not going to fully understand what those alignments mean if they don't understand what is the galactic core connected to, for example. Right? This has been part of the big secret since the Atlantean period, the part that the Beloveds hadn't talked about when they first gave the book Voyagers, because we were still hoping that it wouldn't get to this point if a lot of the Anu races had held their treaties with us. The activations of the Templar wouldn't have gone this far. But they are releasing the whole thing at this point because it's gone this far, and we've got 3 years to be ready for this fiasco, which is basically what it's going to be. Okay, next question. Uh-oh. Let me see if this is the long one. We're going to do coffee break at 1. Short one.
Exactly 1 o'clock.
Is it? I think I want to read this one first, though. We're supposed to do a coffee break at 1, but I think I want to just get through, get this one before we go anyplace again. Okay. Now, the next question. I think this is, yeah, this was the one that took forever to answer. So it'll be, I'm sure we'll all be glad for a short break after we finish however many pages it is, 6 or 8 or whatever. What is the core purpose behind the Illuminati Master Plan Prime Objective of forcing Earth into Alpha-Omega Fall Path alignment in 2012, and how can they achieve this prime objective? Oh boy. You would not believe how complicated the answer to that one is. Not so much the first part. The core purpose isn't that hard to understand. How can they achieve it? Whoa, this is like crash course in how Death Star Merkabahs work. So, we'll start with, during the Illuminati Templar victory of the 10,948 BC Atlantean period, the Illuminati force succeeded in establishing a long-range electromagnetic wormhole link between the solar stargates at the core of our sun and those at the core of our parallel sun within the parallel Milky Way galaxy. So they started with making wormholes between the two suns. The Illuminati elder races refer to the fall-aligned black hole system of the parallel Milky Way galaxy as the alpha wormhole system, as it is the beginning point from which their progressive invasion into our Milky Way galaxy was launched long ago. The Illuminati elders refer to our Milky Way galaxy as the Omega wormhole system, as it is the intended endpoint at which their progressive invasion will end with fulfillment of the Illuminati Master Plan Prime Objective, hence the term Alpha-Omega Fall Path Alignment. We're talking about the wormholes that lead to what we'll read about now. When the Illuminati elder races achieved their 10,948 BC Templar victory through large-scale Metatronic Bloom of Doom death science applications and successfully created the inorganic long-range electromagnetic wormhole link between our sun's core solar stargates and those of the parallel sun, this wormhole link enabled the Illuminati elders to create a massive solar space-time anomaly called the Solar Time Torus Tunnel. The Solar Time Torus Tunnel formed an inorganic Vesica-Pisces blend with the and resultant anomalous tube torus-shaped Metatronic space-time adhesion field between our Milky Way galaxy and the parallel Milky Way galaxy through the core stargates of their respective suns. So through our sun and through the sun in the sun that would be with parallel Earth. Right? They literally created this time torus tunnel. Right? There's just the beginning of a mess they've created, and which is activating. With creation of the solar time torus tunnel, our solar system became an inorganic binary star system, with the orbit of our sun directly unnaturally tied to the orbit of this invisible parallel sun. At the 10,948 BC point in time where the solar time torus tunnel was created, the solar orbit cycles brought the solar stargates of both suns into direct alignment with the core stargates of their respective galactic cores. So in this particular period of time, in the solar cycles of each of the systems, that the suns in each system, parallel in here, aligned with the galactic cores. Like it'd be like our sun's stargates aligning with the galactic core stargates in our system, and the same occurring over there. Now, when we'll probably look at this a little bit more tomorrow if I have time to do the diagrams where I can show a bit of what that looks like on the probability map alignments that we've been working with before. But what happens next is quite fascinating. So they created, this is the big secret of what happened back about 13,000 years ago. It was the creation first of the solar time torus tunnel. Okay, let's see where I left off. Okay, so at that time that they were created, in that time period, that is when both of those suns also were in alignment, the stargates were in alignment with the stargates of the galactic centers. All right. Now, through the inorganic link of the solar time torus tunnel, the core stargates of our Milky Way galaxy were inorganically wormhole linked to the core stargates of the fall-aligned parallel Milky Way galaxy. So it literally went from, you had on the parallel side, you had, the galactic core gates that linked into the solar gates at that time period, and then they linked those solar gates to our solar gates, and our solar gates were already linked into our galactic core. So it created a whole link of wormhole right across. And it looks like a straight line, actually, when you see it on the probability maps. I just didn't have time to do those for today. Right. This galactic core wormhole link created a second massive tube torus-shaped intergalactic space-time adhesion field surrounding the smaller solar time torus tunnel. The intergalactic space-time adhesion field created an inorganic intergalactic space-time displacement field time rip called the Toral Rift, T-O-R-A-L, derived from torus, tube torus, right? So the Toral Rift time rip. And remember, this was created with the solar, whatever they call it, time torus tunnel. Right? Some of these words, it's tongue-tie-me. But these were all created in the 10,948 BC period, right? So they created this intergalactic space-time displacement field time rip called the Toral Rift, was created around the smaller time tunnel at its center. Right? This was also known as the Great Rift of Space-Time between our Milky Way and the parallel Milky Way galaxies. And they put in parentheses here, ancient Maya referred to the Toral Rift as the Black Road. And there's some, I don't know, I haven't studied the Mayan stuff a lot, but there's something about in 2012 we're supposed to align with the Black Road. And there's a word for it in, the Mayan language. Yeah. Okay. Illuminati elder forces from the fall-aligned parallel Alpha Milky Way galaxy system had been attempting for eons, long before Earth became ensnared in the drama, to create the Toral Rift intergalactic time rip anomaly. This anomaly represented the final missing piece of the intergalactic Metatronic Alpha-Omega wormhole puzzle they had been painstakingly assembling over many millions of years to fulfill the prime objective of their Omega System invasion master plan, because they have been planning to invade this system so they could harness it, the quantum, which we'll get to in a little bit. Though the Alpha Illuminati elders, the ones from the Alpha system or the parallel system, so they're now referring to them as the Alpha Illuminati elders, had come close to creating the intergalactic Alpha-Omega Toral Rift anomaly during various periods of intergalactic history. They did not fully succeed in this endeavor until their Templar victory of the 10,948 BC Earth Atlantis. So after all the millions of years that they've been trying to do this, and there was all sorts of warfares that we've seen pieces of the history of, they never quite got this far where they could actually bring the two systems together, force them together, force this system to fall, turn it into a black hole that gets eaten by the other black hole, so it fills the quantum of the other black hole that's going to explode itself if it doesn't get fed. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what it's about, but we'll have more in a nutshell here. The prime objective of the Omega System Invasion Master Plan, for which the Alpha Illuminati elder races created the intergalactic Toral Rift space-time rip and corresponding Alpha-Omega wormhole networks, was quite simple and single-minded. The parallel Milky Way alpha galaxy long ago entered final fall alignment to become a self-contained finite quantum quarantined black hole fall system that was destined by the eternal cosmic laws of cause, effect, and consequence to engage the path of space dust return upon expiration of its finite quantum and resultant full system particle-antiparticle annihilation, because that is what happens in fall systems. That's how they go back to space dust return. They implode and then explode. And then in particulate form, or back to party-chi consciousness, then they pick up back into the living system and can get taken back into source. But they don't get taken back in with memory matrix or anything. You just go back to units of the consciousness of source kind of thing, which they each have a little bit of consciousness, but you won't remember who you were or where you came from kind of thing. say, hi, I'm a part of Chi. It'll be about the extent of the identity. So anyway. So they are the fallen Alpha Illuminati elder races devised their Omega Invasion Master Plan agenda with the prime objective of ensnaring further quanta of living energy with which to feed their dying system in order to indefinitely postpone the inevitable space dust return of their galaxy. The Alpha Illuminati elders employed large-scale use of the Metatronic Bloom of Doom death sciences to create the inorganic intergalactic Alpha-Omega wormhole networks and to create the intergalactic Great Toral Rift of 10,948 BC. The purpose of the Toral Rift intergalactic space-time displacement field, time rip, that's a big description there, was and is specifically to draw the living energy quanta of the Milky Way galaxy into their fall-aligned parallel Milky Way galaxy black hole in order to feed the quantum spin of their fallen galaxy to postpone the organic consequence of its implosion. If the Alpha Illuminati elders could succeed in this prime objective, this gets even better, they believed they would then be able to enlarge the plan by devouring other neighboring galaxies, following the expansion cycle ratios of the Fibonacci spiral, to orchestrate an artificial facsimile second creation that could perpetually sustain itself through forced Metatronic feeding from the living first creation systems of the eternal life cosmos. If they could go that far, they could go the whole distance, is what they were thinking. Oh boy, what were they thinking? This is what they were thinking. When the Alpha Illuminati elders succeeded in creating the Great Toral Rift intergalactic space-time displacement field in 10,948 BC Atlantis, through first creating the solar time torus tunnel wormhole link between our solar core stargates and those of parallel, a second time acceleration of Earth's pole wobble was simultaneously initiated, and the first one was the one that happened in 13,400 BC, and more of that will be talked about in the summary one, but it's where they did certain things that accelerated the cycle of the equinox, and that occurred by accelerating the wobble, the wobble of the Earth's axis, which has something to do with what they did in the core. So it's basically all of that was done in order to have the gate alignments occur between the Amenti gates on parallel that were falling and the ones over here that weren't falling yet but are now. Okay, let's see. So it's that period when they created the Toral Rift. That was their big accomplishment, creating the Toral Rift. That when they did the second acceleration on the precession of the equinoxes and on the planetary wobble. The second Earth pole wobble acceleration accelerated the SAC cycle of a portion of Earth's halls of Amenti gates into direct synchronization with the SAC opening cycle of the parallel Earth Amenti stargates. So back then, that's when it started, that it synchronized in that period. Because of this, 10,948 BC, Earth time acceleration and subsequent inorganic Earth parallel Earth Amenti stargate synchronization, Earth's Amenti stargates would open prematurely during the 2012 AD opening of the parallel Earth Amenti gates. In 2012 AD, when the intergalactic planetary Amenti stargates sets begin synchronized opening in October 2012, Earth and parallel Earth will engage Metatronic Alpha-Omega fall alignment. As the two artificially synchronized stellar activation cycles initiate their Amenti stargate opening cycles with opening of the solar and parallel solar core stargates, the central inorganic 10,948 BC solar time torus tunnel wormhole link between our sun and parallel sun will also open. Now they start going and they're going to talk about as if this is happening, but they're doing it under the word if. Okay, which means potential for intervention, and at some point some of this better be stopped or we might as well just go on vacation now and forget it. Right? If the Illuminati Master Plan prime objective unfolds in 2012 as the Illuminati elders intend, which is not going to, but if it did, Opening of the solar time torus tunnel wormhole will then open the inorganic intergalactic alpha omega wormholes at the galactic cores of our Milky Way and the parallel Milky Way galaxy, resultantly opening the 10,948 BC intergalactic toral rift Metatronic space-time displacement field time rip of the Atlantean past into the future period of our present 2012 AD. They will get that far. All right? The if, that much is going to happen. All right? There's a bit more after that that's going to happen, but it's not going to go as far as pole shift. All right? Once the Atlantean toral rift opens, now this is, let's say, okay, if it goes the way they're planning, right? So far, it is going to, but there's going to be a point where certain things we're going to read here are not what's going to occur. But if it weren't for the intervention that's being done, they would. Okay, so once the Atlantean toral rift opens into the fabric of our contemporary 2012 space-time, an anomalous space-time blend of past and future present converging will unfold. So it's literally opening like a tunnel into that particular time. That 10,948 BC Atlantis is still a place in the space-time rhythms, because we've talked about before that space and time are simultaneous, and it has to do with what time track you're on. It's literally ripping a hole between two time tracks. And it gets even stranger. Here's where we find out what Death Star Merkabahs can do. Okay, so as the two as the two respective planetary Amenta gate sets open into their respective solar stargate alignments, Earth and parallel Earth will be brought into Alpha Omega Foul alignment of the 10,948 BC Toral Rift time rip. Now, if there's anything, there's a number of things that are aligning here, but when it comes to 2012, what's the big thing? What are we aligning with? That's the big thing. Okay, we have wormholes that are not quite as big an issue, and we have the time torus, solar time torus tunnel that is not as big an issue. This is a big issue. This is a massive, literally where you could take a solar system and suck it into a different space-time alignment. And from what they explained, it's not pretty. Once the Amenta stargates, now again we're going if there's no intervention, this is what would happen. All right. Once the Amenta stargates of Earth and parallel Earth engage with the Atlantean toral rift 10,948 BC time rip, Earth and parallel Earth and Sun and parallel Sun will then initiate cataclysmic geomagnetic field pole shift and geographical crust roll rotation, where the axis actually stays there, but the crust rolls all over the mantle at the Alpha Omega fall alignment peak of December 21st, 2012. And the reason this would happen would be so the geomagnetic fields would resume the planetary and solar polar alignments that were present during, and still are present, in the 10,948 BC period. So they would roll them back into that in order to begin rolling us literally out of the fabric of space-time here and into the fabric of space-time there. During the 10,948 BC period, the solar stargates of both our Sun and parallel Sun were in direct alignment with the core galactic stargates of their respective galactic cores, which means each sun was aligned with its galaxy, and then they opened the suns between each other, right? Which allowed for opening of the intergalactic wormholes at the core of both galaxies, through which the toral rift time rip space-time displacement field was created. So that's during that alignment was when this whole thing was created in the first place. When contemporary Earth and parallel Earth, Sun and parallel Sun resume the galactic core aligned planetary and solar polar alignments of the 10,948 BC period, the energy quantum of our solar system and that of the parallel solar system will be progressively compressed and drawn backward in time. The quantum of the two solar systems first compacting into a Vesica-Pisces bond at the center of the toral rift space-time displacement field. Now here we get into the process by which this occurs, which is morbidly fascinating. The process by which our solar system and its parallel solar system are drawn back in time into the toral rift time rip involves Metatronic death science, Death Star distorted Merkaba vortex mechanics. The energy quantum of our solar system and that of the parallel solar system first compact into a Vesica Pisces bond at the core of the toral rift, time rift. So they're not pulled in yet; they're actually aligning with it as the Merkaba field vortex set of each respective sun is progressively attracted into opposite polarity electromagnetic bond with the Merkaba fields of the other sun. So the Merkabas of each field are coming progressively together first, before it goes all the way back in time. First they merge in our time. The two suns begin, the Merkaba fields start merging. Okay. As the two solar systems progressively collide to engage the Vesica Pisces orbit, they are, and this is after the pole shift, so you wouldn't have to worry about it anyway. Basically, if it was going to happen, we'd all be roasted by now, gone, right? So this is what happens after the sixth extermination, right? As the two solar systems progressively collide to engage the Vesica Pisces orbit, they are both drawn backward in time toward the 10,948 BC center creation point of the toral rift space-time displacement field. Now, as the two solar systems draw backward in time, the spin speeds of their respective Merkaba fields progressively accelerate. When the spin speed of our mutated same spin vortex set, because right now the planetary fields are mutated, where instead of having the top one going clockwise and the bottom one going counterclockwise in every Merkaba set, what you have is one set of two going in the same direction, and they create a phase-locked set, and another set of two going in counterspin, and they're also a phase-locked set. So instead of two vortices, like would be the natural configuration, there's actually four, and that's characteristic of the Death Star and Bloom of Doom Merkaba mechanics that are being taught. And we get to find out a bit what these Merkabas do. When the spin of our mutated same spin vortex set solar Merkaba fields reaches 34 spin, and the likewise mutated same spin vortex set of the parallel solar Merkaba field simultaneously reaches 21 counterspin, the two solar Merkaba fields and their contents, which happens to be our solar systems, right, are drawn together and begin backward time progression toward the center point of the toral rift's tube torus-shaped Metatronic harness field. As the two solar Merkaba fields merge, the faster 34-spin solar Merkaba field reverses the spin of the slower 21 parallel solar Merkaba field, and the two solar Merkaba fields accelerate to a 55 spin speed. Blending to form a large, singular, inorganic, external Metatronic Merkaba field space-time same spin vortex set. So once it hits 55, it creates a larger one outside around the fields of the two. Right. Let's see. Where is that? With an internal. Okay. And within this large 55 spin Merkaba, it has an internal Metatronic atomic encasement harness, like a bubble of energy inside that harnesses atoms, and which will surround the quanta of the two solar systems that are held within it. So it's actually taking two different suns and their solar systems, each with a Merkaba set that should be, a top and a bottom spiral, each one of them, and forcing them together. It forms a larger, shared Merkaba field with a faster spin speed, and it mashes the two solar systems together in the center. All right, let's see. See where I'm here. Spin speed. It takes me a minute here. My eyes don't move that fast anymore these days. Merkaba feels in the first. Okay. Following the Fibonacci expansion sequence, the blended solar Merkaba field accelerates from its 55 starting spin speed to a 144 spin speed, hits 89 first, and it goes 144, at which point the blended solar Merkaba field generates an external thermal field encasement and jumps the organic boundaries of space, time, and light, entering a superluminal state to pass into the center point of the 10,948 BC toral rift time rip, where it becomes an externally fueled, finite life, Death Star, external Merkaba vehicle, black hole feeder field. And remember, the solar systems are mashed in the middle of this, right? Once formed, the Death Star external Merkaba vehicle begins quantum feeding from the remaining local living energy environments of our Milky Way and the parallel Milky Way galaxies, initiating quantum growth and spin speed acceleration following the Fibonacci expansion sequence through perpetual quantum feeding of the life fields of both galaxies. So it will continue to feed on those galaxies until it drags more and more of the quantum into itself. What's interesting is what it does to the matter inside. As the blended Merkaba field accelerates to 144 spin speed to enter the superluminosity state of the Death Star external Merkaba vehicle, it progressively acts as a particle accelerator to the quanta of the two solar systems held within its internal atomic encasement harness. Once the point of superluminosity is reached, extreme particle acceleration of the encased matter forms of the two suns and their solar systems causes their encryption lattices and the atomic structure to progressively implode, explode, and shatter within the Megatronic atomic encasement harness at the center of the Death Star Merkaba vehicle. The two solar systems are thus reduced to raw energy quanta of hyper-accelerated space dust within the internal atomic encasement harness. The quanta of the two solar systems blends and merges to form a singular quantum field of inorganic, superluminal, artificial, static radiation, dead light particulates, quarantined within the atomic encasement harness. While in the superluminal state, the Death Star Merkaba vehicle and the superluminal quanta radiation particulate field of what had been the two solar systems that is held within its encasement harness is then quantum transferred through the Megatronic Alpha Omega wormhole passages out of the 10,948 BC Toral Rift space-time displacement field and into the Alpha System parallel Milky Way galaxy as quantum influx. So they are using this time anomaly to drag stuff back in there where they can take it, the Merkabas activate to superluminal state. It takes the particles back, and at that point they're accelerated so much they explode into particulate dust. And then from there, it accelerates and moves through the wormhole, so it can move whatever it just stole wherever it wants to. And this is how the false ascendant masters come back and forth from those systems, because they activate those Merkabic vehicles. But what's interesting is what happens after this. You get a structure back. And once it has that structure, it can move with these Death Star vehicles. But once quantum transfer has occurred, so once the thing is formed in the time rep and then dragged through the wormholes to where they want to put it in the parallel system, right, the metatronically harnessed quantum of what was the two solar systems is transferred within the Death Star Merkaba vehicle to the fallen parallel Milky Way galaxy alpha black hole system. And the Death Star begins, then the Death Star begins spin speed deceleration, leaving the superluminal state, and the singular quantum field of inorganic, superluminal, artificial static radiation, dead light particulates, that's a long description there, within its internal atomic encasement harness, begin corresponding particle deceleration. So it speeds all up, goes superluminal, turns the stuff to space dust inside of it, then it starts to slow down again. Right? As when it moves it to where it wants it to be. As the static radiation particulates of what had been the two solar systems engage particle deceleration and leave the superluminal state, the matter structure reforms within the Death Star internal atomic encasement harness through the process of particle reaccretion, following an inorganic blended organization of what was the original core encryption lattices of the two solar systems. So the encryption lattices that got shattered of the two solar systems, each little unit of anything will always have a piece of its organization still within it, its radiation signature organizational instructions. So they start to reassemble, but instead of just having things that are from the particle universe assembling with the particle and things from the antiparticle universe assembling with themselves, they're starting to assemble together in twisted form, and they create something, a complete anomaly as a matter form that is completely not sustainable, first of all, but is completely inorganic. All right, so following the following an inorganic blended organization of what was the original encryption lattices of the two solar systems. The dead light radiation particulates within the Death Star encasement harness each still carry a minute nanobyte of the original encryption lattice radiation signature from which they fragmented. Through this nanobyte radiation signature, the particulates from both the particle and antiparticle solar systems recreate a distorted organization to reform a mutated blended encryption lattice upon which the particulates rematerialize into a new matter form within the Death Star atomic encasement harness. The new artificially rendered matter form rematerializes within the parallel Milky Way galaxy alpha black hole system as a singular, distorted, finite life mutated facsimile of the original two solar systems. The particulate field rematerializes within the Death Star atomic encasement harness in the parallel alpha system black hole as a new finite life artificial light facsimile Death Star solar system. So this is where a Death Star solar system was created. And that's the beginning of how they want to create a Death Star galaxy and then a Death Star universe, progressively sucking it in. So they want to use the two suns to drag in our solar system and the parallel antiparticle solar system, mush them together, and create the first step in their plan, which is the Death Star solar system. That is a feeder system. It has a black hole around it that sucks energy in. So it will continue to suck the energy out of the two galaxies that it was connected to, and then from then on, their plan was to have it continue to do that with neighboring galaxies and continue the building process. But they're going to find out it really doesn't work. They were warned for ages. It really doesn't. It comes back on them eventually. Let's see. The particulate field there where I am. Yeah, okay. I didn't get to the twisted fallen version yet. All right. The particulate field rematerializes within the Death Star encasement harness in the parallel alpha system black hole as a new finite life artificial light facsimile Death Star solar system, a permanently mutated, twisted, fallen version of our solar system and the parallel system combined. The new facsimile solar system then falls under the hierarchical, how do I say that? Hierarchical. Don't worry about literals right now, it's not proofed anyway. All right, under the hierarchical quantum dominance of the Metatronic encryption lattice of the finite life quarantined parallel alpha fall system. So in other words, once you get in there, that quarantine system and what its larger quantum encryption lattice is will actually dominate your personal encryption lattice, which means you have no more free will. This is where you go into hive mind stuff, where you don't even have, progressively, the more that plugs in, you just lose. You don't have free will, so eventually you just don't have free thought, and you're just like a kind of walking robot for whatever the larger collectives are that have more energy quantum than you do as an individual. All right, so it falls under the hierarchical quantum dominance of the Metatronic encryption lattice of the finite life quarantined parallel alpha fall system. Once the official Death Star solar system is reformed inside of the Death Star Merkaba vehicle, it will continue Metatronic Fibonacci expansion. It is progressive expansion. There is no contraction on this. It just keeps going and going because it keeps feeding and expanding, right? Like they say our galaxy is doing. It will continue Metatronic Fibonacci expansion through progressive consumption of the two galactic fields from which it was formed, as its feeder Death Star Merkaba vehicle continues to siphon energy quanta from the remaining living energy aspects of the two galaxies. The Death Star solar system feeds, as the Death Star solar system feeds, it will progressively pull the Milky Way and parallel Milky Way galaxies into Death Star transformation. They're calling this Death Star transformation. That process that just happened, where it hit 55, speed spin with the quantified stuff, with the quantum of captured energy inside, be it a being or a building or a solar system, and then accelerated to superluminal. When it hit 144 spin speed, then it goes into superluminal. At superluminal, it accelerates the particles inside of itself so fast that they actually shatter. Their encryption lattices actually shatter. They bring it back into that one-time period from which they can access all of their wormhole gates, and then they can move it in that vehicle as just space dust quantum into whatever fallen system they want to move it in. Then they can decelerate the Merkaba, the Death Star Merkaba vehicle, and it will remanifest a twisted version of the original form because of the pieces of the encryption of the original forms that were still there. So that is basically, in a nutshell, of what this menagerie does. It's an abomination in nature, actually, or anti-nature. Let's see, anyway. Let's start again. All right, so the process, that whole process is referred to now as the Death Star transformation. And as later, I won't go into this, I'll do it after break, when we get into what this looks like on a personal level. Because the people who have been working with certain paradigms have been taught to create and activate these Merkaba fields with themselves. And we're also going to all get a nice dose of it, even if we didn't ask for it, in 2012. So there's a lot more to talk about with this. Let me get to a certain point with this, but before we go into what it does personally and what to do about it, basically, because, you know, some people, if they've gotten entangled with teachings that are teaching them to do that, they don't know the difference. They think it's, you know, ascension stuff. There are things, remedial things that can be done, and the only time there's really nothing that can be done is if somebody has hit full superluminal, where they can actually travel back and forth with it. At that point, you can't undo the first shattering and putting back together in a distorted form, and they won't be able to do ascension passage stuff. But you can, a being that goes through that, they will never be able to do in this lifetime, do biological ascension. But with very specialized hosts, they can get out at the Bardo point of the body, but the body will not want to die. It'll keep feeding, and it'll go. It expands life. I mean, these Merkaba fields actually extend. Well, you have to like be dead first, and then you become the living dead by sucking energy off other things through that Merkaba field. But it will prolong that false form of living, which isn't, it's not really live. It kills the being first and then kind of resurrects it into a facsimile of itself. But they do have very, very long lifespans, sometimes like, 300,000-400,000 years old, because they can preserve the form as long as they feed. So if you want to become a vampire, use those forms. And it's not, like sticking your teeth into somebody's neck kind of vampiring. It's actually more sinister. It's literally soul stealing, the energy field. So anyway, let's see. After we get to Death Star transformation and corresponding, let's see, where did I start? Some of these sentences really should be 3. When I look at them, like, where's the period? Or an apostrophe or something. As the Death Star solar Merkaba feeds, it progressively pulls the Milky Way and parallel Milky Way into the Death Star transformation and corresponding path of fall space dust return alignment. So once you go into this, once you have this vehicle activated, be you a galaxy or a person, it is full fall alignment, because it's the point of no return once you've gone through the Death Star transformation, which means the first time that activates and your template gets ripped apart and then stuffed back together in a weird way, that at that point you are in a fall alignment, and there is no way to get you back on the ascension path without doing space dust return first. All right. So that's what they're planning for our solar system and our galaxy. Nice people, these, not? Right. Okay. Okay, so as they are bringing the, as they're using that harnessed solar system that they created the facsimile solar system with, they'll use that as the core around which this Death Star Merkaba spins and continues to suck energy in from the galaxies it's connected to, until eventually they can bring the whole galaxies in, and then they would not just have a Death Star solar system, they would have a Death Star black hole galaxy. And then they would be able to go for the universal level. So creation of the artificial Death Star black hole feeder galaxy is the core purpose, prime objective, of the Alpha Omega Illuminati master plan. The Alpha Illuminati elders of the fallen parallel Milky Way galaxy Alpha black hole system joined with other Illuminati elder races of several other quarantined fallen black hole systems to form the Alpha Omega false godhead Illuminati elder fallen angel hierarchy. And this whole godhead thing that's coming through I mean, you have brotherhoods of all sorts of colors and stuff coming through in the New Age movement. They're directly connected into these. I say, through creation of the artificial Death Star black hole galaxy, an abomination of Metatronic Bloom of Doom death science creation, the Alpha Omega false godhead falling Illuminati elder collectives hope to recreate creation in their own image. They hope to use the Death Star galaxy to create, then assimilate others of its kind. In other words, take living universes, force them in to fall, and then suck them in to blend them in to make their universe bigger. Urantria book is really good at trying to get you to go there without even talking about Merkabahs, right? To form a massive Death Star universe that sustains its existence and averts the organic consequences of eternal cosmic physics laws through perpetual rape of and feeding on the living cosmos. The Alpha Omega false godhead, godhead, will discover the great fallacy of its recent rendition of their master plan prime objective in 2976. So they have got an appointment with destiny in 2976. The Metatronic Bloom, which we'll talk about later, the Metatronic Bloom of Doom death science dynamics of the Death Star Merkaba vehicle described above in relation to the macrocosmic Illuminati Master Plan Prime Objective also apply. And right after I finish this little paragraph here, that's when we can take a break, and then we'll come back because this is getting into the personal level, right? Okay, so these dynamics that we just described of the Death Star transformation and all of that, right? We describe them in the context of the macrocosmic Illuminati Master Plan Prime Objective. These also apply on a microcosmic level. Individual life forms who engage Death Star Merkaba vehicle activation, either unconsciously through environmental planetary encryption lattice quantum dominance, which is what the planet's going into in 2012, or consciously through intentional practice of Death Star Merkaba vehicle activation technologies, both of them are aligning with the Death Star fall path destiny. Individuals retain the power of free will choice in regard to the evolutionary path, in regard to evolutionary path biological ascension alignment up until the point of the first full 55 spin speed Death Star activation. At 55 spin speed, and it's a full, when it first starts, it's not full yet. It actually has to go through all of its subharmonics. But at a 55 spin speed, the Death Star Merkaba vehicle forms its internal Metatronic atomic encasement field, begins generating its external thermal field encasement, and initiates Fibonacci death spiral feeding for expansion and acceleration. So it's at that point that the feeder spiral starts, where it starts to suck energy off its local environment and consume it in order to expand. Once it gets to that point, it creates a problem. If it goes fully to that point, then it will rapidly accelerate from 89 to 144 to superluminal into particle crunch and all of that. So this is going to become important later. We'll read this when we get back to see what it does on the personal level, and then as we get toward more toward the end of the reading, we will understand what this has to do with 2012, because a certain level of these things that are part of this master plan agenda are going to take place because they can't be prevented. But there is a point of intervention, and it's because where certain things can be done. So there are certain things that we're going to have to deal with, and that's why the Silver Seed healing technologies are being brought in. Because if our bodies are going to be tripped into this Metatronic activation, 55 activation, we're all just going to get plugged into the broadcast net, or we're going to end up with mind control and biological control, and it's going to reverse our entire Merkaba fields and DNA encryption, and we're going to get sucked down into that destiny, whether we like it or not. That's why the beloveds are bringing the other technologies in. Those technologies rely on things that we're going to be doing during this workshop and in our grid work here, because the grid work here is going to begin the process of bringing in something called the what do they call it, the Stardust Silver Seed grid, okay, which is, we'll get into what that is a little bit later. It has to do with the antidote, well, not quite antidote, but sort of antidote, we'll talk about that later too, of the what is called the artificial, or what's the word? It's artificial is good. Artificial Christ consciousness grid, which is a word that is a deceptive term that is used in the New Age movement to talk about the Metatronic geomagnetic field encryption, the encryption harness that is here, the encryption lattice that has been Metatronicked. So there is going to be another field created. We have a primary geomagnetic field that will go into Metatronic dominance fully in 2012, but we are also going to build a secondary field that aligns directly and actually is carrying part of the encryption of that higher Earth we've talked about and of median Earth. So it actually creates another set of geomagnetic fields that people that work with the technologies of the Silver Seed Awakening will be able to have that. It will be like having median Earth be what the planetary field that is organizing your encryption for you instead of the Metatronic one that's progressively activating on the planet. That will stop us on a planetary level from being pushed past. We will start the 55 activation because we can't catch it any sooner, but it will not go into a full 55 activation. So we're going to really annoy them for 200 years because we're going to stall it. They'll start it up, vroom, vroom, like starting a car, and we're just going to kind of like put the brakes on, where it's like this big invisible hand comes down and says, no, you're not moving forward. And it will keep doing its thing, but it's not going to go into full activation. But it's still going to go into partial activation, which will affect our DNA. And that's why it's important to pay attention to our personal BPR, because if we don't, it will simply flip over with what the quantum dominant mass is here, and that will be the Metatronic code. So anyway, I'm going to take a few-minute break or whatever for, I think there's coffee out there. Are there coffee out there now? There's cups, yeah. Okay, so maybe 20 minutes. Okay, I'll catch my wind here so I can breathe. Thank you.